Okay, week 7. A couple more content weeks to go, and projects all fit together. Sampling of what it's like to go to a team meeting. That's from I question you or take charge. And you have a session with me and uh, part of let's try that prompting you and a little more, and I'll as we talk more. So a model, and I'm hoping that you feel a little anxious together. We're really going to go back to territory that the user who the information really because this is from the information. Before I exactly what does this use the information. All right, so now we're going to move forward. And there's a lot to cover here. And as last time, I probably won't get to the in-depth dialogue about what I put together for you. So if I don't get that, I'll record that later and I'll post that on the site. Okay, so we did use info persona. We did use modeling, resulting in a logical design for the. Now we're in the site design. Site design phase, which is all this week's work. We're going to talk about these different things and each deliverable for you guys to come up with for funnel design, which we'll talk about in a moment. Wireframes, both at a page and level. So this is work going forward to turn your information architecture here, your user information, into a. All right, let's run through each one of those things, and I'll tell you some more about it. So the way that we're looking at this, and design sites, is that we take what we know about the user, take what we know about the information, and that tells us what to display. As opposed to what most people do is they start here. They immediately, upon getting a project, start sketching out screens and saying, well, let's do this, let's do that. To my mind, that's kind of a backwards way to do it. You don't know a lot about the user and you don't know a lot about the information, then your displays are going to not necessarily serve the user, and they're not necessarily going to do the right thing by the information either. So we've already done user and information, and now it's time for us to turn to display the information. And I'll just basically quickly put this stuff back on because this is what we're talking about. A lot about this user. And now I'm hoping also in your own work that that you're constantly looking at this info persona and going both ways, saying what have we learned since we did this that changes what we want to do here, or in most cases refines it and gets it down to the bare minimum that you need to do in order to A, meet the needs of this assignment, B, serve this user. So each one of these deliverables gets reviewed over and over again. So here's the info persona. Here's my info logical model. Remembering again that the two things that I started out here with are cars and dealers. And that my system is all going to be about cars and dealers. That the structure of the logical model derives directly from the structure of the info persona. So the info persona led directly to the info type logical model and also the access structure logical model. And you'll remember that I've started going forward, I start scoping things out. Not getting rid of them, but I strike them through that, you know what, I'm just not going to be able to cover this. I scoped out, I out scoped two big. One was anything about the user. model, there's nothing about the user here. There's only stuff about the information, and I did that to keep this from getting out of control. That's the decision I will be thinking about this, and really will have to start thinking about this by the time we get to the end of this lecture, because you'll see what to do to put this stuff into play. So what can I do that still serves done, but doesn't blow up and get out of control? Because you can see already that I have a ton of access structures here, and that each one of these access structures is some database schema. It's also some query to get the access structure out, and that's again what you did for today. For each of those, for each of these access structures, you figured out what additional database schema any I needed, and you found that when I taught you this the first time, I created separate database entities for these different access structures, like for indexes and sequences. And now this time I showed you how a lot of them can come from existing structures. So you have that choice to create new structures to represent your access structures, or to try to pull them out of existing structures. Either one have both tricks in your pocket. You want you to be able to model these things separately, but it's possible or it's desirable to get them out of existing data. Okay, so that's all where we've been. Now let's get to where we need to be today. What happens when the user meets that info need? I needed some information from the standpoint of this project. My organization gets what it wants. There's a reason why I'm putting the system together. It's not just because I want the user to be happy. This is a basic kind of calculation that you should always do, and you don't always get in your education. We seem to think that if this bottom one happens, the user gets what they want. Everything is cool. I'm here to tell you that as soon as you get into the outside world, that's only half the equation. It's free. Yeah, we want the users to get what they want, but we want to get what we want. Putting this thing up. This is costing us millions of dollars to put up this website, so there's always a balance. It's not a bad thing or a good thing, it just is. The person who pays for the project wants something out of it. The people who are served by the project want something out of it as well. And when the user meets an info need, if everything is well, the organization gets what it wants, the user gets what they want, and there's a balance. The user doesn't feel cheated by the organization, and the organization doesn't feel cheated by the user. There's a balance. It's a transaction. The org gets what it wants, and the user gets what they want. And hopefully, that's a balanced transaction. Okay, so I'm going to give you a deliverable for each of these parts. How do I say what the organization wants and that my system is going to get me there? How do I say what the user wants and that my system is going to get me there? Okay, so the concept of the organization gets what it gets. The idea of a funnel. A funnel is shaped like this. And all the time in organizations, nonprofit organizations, or government organizations, or for-profit organizations, we always talk about funnels. The idea is that a lot of people come in at the top, and some number do the thing at the bottom. I'm getting fewer people because lots of people are dropping off. They're not completing the action, and that's to be expected. That a lot of people will come, and a small number of those will actually complete what they want them to do as an organization. If I'm a car dealer, like I'm proposing in this situation, people come to my lot every day. 100 people come to the lot. Of those, how many people buy a car? Few, right? Very small number. So what are the stages they go through to be converted from a looker to a doer? That is a site funnel. So here's the site funnel has these different stages, and the funnel that you create get people down here to what they call conversion. User lands somewhere, and they follow the suggested next action. This is the whole key to it, is that I'm constantly suggesting to the user that they move towards this final action. I'm funneling them, I'm channeling the action I want them to perform in the site. That's how I designed it from the standpoint. I get them to land somewhere that is a good starting place, and then I move them, I flow them from their starting place where they land to some place that I consider to be success. And that success gets what she wants, right? The user is satisfied, that's success from the standpoint. But I get conversion. I get a car buyer. I get something that I want out of this user. And no matter what it is, that you want something to happen, something that your organization wants to happen. Okay, so here's the general idea of the funnel. Here's it represented graphically. So lands over here, and lots of them land, and lots of different starting pages. And as you move down towards what you want them to do, they're flowing. They're flowing through different pages, and we're expecting that some of them are dropping off because it's not right for them. We expect that there's fewer pages that they're going to funnel in through. These are sort of the catcher pages, the pages that catch your attention, and here are the pages that channel you towards a success action. So some very few numbers of actions that you want the user to do. And specifically, you want them to click this button, for example. Now, that's not always what you want them to do, but there's some action. There's something that says, I got what we want. And in this case, conversion, which means I took them from someone who was just someone who's made some particular commitment to my organization in whatever way it is that I want them to, there's an action that I want them to take. And this is the measure of success. And if you're doing a project in the outside world, this is the only measure of success. You can think of all of this as just fodder, right? This is stuff you have to do to get some number of clicks on this button. Okay, it's a really important concept, and I want you to really take this to heart. This is the whole point of this website, is these buttons and getting people to do what these buttons say you want them to do. It may be that they get to know something, it may be get to do something, experience something, whatever it is that you want your site to do, all boil down to some particular place. That's why it's called funnel. You have all these pages, and no matter where you are, okay, that's the organizational perspective. That's what the organization wants. And now let's look at it in terms of the particular project that I'm giving you as a sample. Remember, we have Michelle, and Michelle's going to buy a car. Michelle starts out here in the world, and she Googles or she sees a Facebook post that somebody else system, or we have some ad, some partial view of one of our cars is an ad on some other site. But here, there's the world here, and we get it from the world to our landing page. That is a particular car. It's going to be a page that shows you a kind of a car. And that's what we think people are going to land on, and there's going to be lots of them. So I'm going to flow through other car pages from my landing page, and I want the user to flow to a car and a dealer, where you can find not the type of car that you're looking for, but a particular car that's of the type you're looking for at a particular dealer that's maybe nearby you. And then I flow through these car dealers, I look at some dealers, and the whole point of my site is this one. I want people to drive the car. I want to move them from looking on the web to walking into the dealership. That's what the dealers want. That's why the dealers are paying for this site. Eventually, we're going to get to the buy one, right? That's really what the dealers want. But we can't make them buy the car on the website. What we can make them do, however, is come to the dealer, so that they are now on site of the dealer, and then the dealer takes it from there. So what we want to do is we want to convert people from the world out here to drivers. That's what our site is going to do. Okay, so can you see the idea here? Can you see the value to the organization of looking at it this way? It's really important that you see this perspective as well as the user perspective. We give you lots and lots of user perspective. This is the organization's perspective. They want lots of people coming into the dealership, and that's what our site's going to try to do. Now, it's not tricking people. I don't want to give you that impression. They want to buy a car too. They want to buy a car, and our idea here is that this flow, while it helps my organization, is simultaneously going to help the user. So let's look at that part. So first deliverable, a site funnel. I want you to go through the logic that I just went through for your stuff. What's the world? Where's the user coming from before they're in our system? Where do they land? How do they flow? What does conversion in our case? And then diagram. The same way that I diagrammed it. You can use your own style, and I prefer that you use your own style of funnel diagram. You can also like cruise the web and find different examples of funnel diagrams and use one of those. But you're more than welcome to use mine. But I'd like you in all cases to consider how to make this stuff your own. It's easy enough to follow in lockstep with what I do and do something sort of similar. And that's fine if that's what your team can get together. But what I'd really like you to do is take the ideas that I give you and take them one step further. A little creative with them. Take them in a different direction. Take them in a more deep direction. And that's okay. Deliverable number one, the site funnel. Deliverable number two, the user journey. So we have what the organization wants, and we have it's the same exact scenario, but this time we're going to look at it from Michelle's perspective. So here's the user journey in general. The user is making their way towards some information they want. I need it. I figure out where to look. I follow the trail. I'm on the trail of getting the information I want, finding a car, whatever. I will abandon the site. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem to be getting me closer to my goal. I'll go further when I'm getting closer, when I feel like I'm on the trail, when I feel like I'm closer and closer and closer to my goal. I might change my mind. I might change my mind about what I want as I go along, as I learn different things about this information. So it's not like I'm single-minded heading towards a goal and I know what that goal is. It ain't like that at all. I have an idea of my goal, and I can be influenced a lot along the way by what I see and what I experience. Okay, when I find it, I'm at success. And there's three different things that success might mean. I might know something I didn't know before, and that was cool. That's what I got now. I might be able to experience something I wanted to experience, finding a song. At the end, I got the song. I listened to the song. Or I have some functionality. I can buy something. I can make something happen. I can become a part of something. Whatever it is that I might want to do. So these are the different forms of the organization are the user does something that my organization wants. My organization in the world, whatever it is that I want that the organization wants. Okay, that's the user journey in general. Let's look at a Michelle journey. Michelle goes through, I'm proposing here, Michelle goes through three stages. I'm unsure what car I want. I know I want a car. I'm on the trail of the car I want, so I'm getting closer to this car I want. And finally, I found the one that I want. These are the stages that I'm proposing for Michelle in her journey towards getting a car. And so I looked at Michelle. I looked at what I know about Michelle, and I also looked about I looked at the general nature of a user journey, and I proposed these three stages. Now, each stage there's a good result and a bad result. The bad result is drop off. The bad result is I'm out of here. I'm away. So I'm unsure of what car I want, and you may be even more confused. So the kind of the contract scenario that I have in mind here is I come to a car site, blast me with all this detail about cars, and it's overwhelming, and I don't even know where to start. I'm more confused now that I look at your site than I was when I got there. So I'm out of here. Boom, gone, dropped off. Or conversely, in a good path, what I see helps me. It's really actually I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm with you. So I'm going to go further. General idea that either I'm going to feel less like I'm towards my goal or more. If I feel more, it's helping me. So I see what I want. I like it. And now I'm going to move on. And now I'm on the trail. Now Michelle has said, all right, this is good. I'll give this a try. I'll move forward with it. And she'll lose. She'll drop off if at some point she feels like I'm not getting any closer. I'm not more confused. I'm not getting any closer to my goal either. So I really need in this stage that she's always getting closer to the car she wants, and she's going to move to the next stage if I can get her to this feeling that she found some good ones. She's actually got a stock of them now. She's got a few cars in her mind that are really good, and so now she found the one she's going towards the stage of finding the one she wants. She'll drop off at this stage either if I can't help her decide amongst those, or she doesn't trust the dealer. Now the dealer comes in because this is not about a kind of car I want. This is about the car I want at this particular dealer. And we better build some trust in the dealer so that she feels comfortable going to that dealer and driving that car and hopefully eventually buying it. Okay, here's the user journey. Very different idea, very different perspective than the organizational journey. It's what she wants. And of course, at this stage is where they come together. User gets what she wants, and the dealer gets what they want. Okay, so that's the user journey. Here's some information about the deliverable for you guys. At least three stages, but you certainly can have many more if your scenario warrants it. I want to drop off at each stage. What's going to make the user if this doesn't happen or if this does happen? The greens for why the user moves forward. So we have like a flow chart. want to put two different things going two different ways, that's fine. But you're better off kind of keeping it simple if you have a choice. So that's success. And as before, create a diagram. You can use my format for diagrams if that works for you. Or you can find your own style, or you can sort of look on the web and see if you can find some examples of ones that you might want to use. Okay, so one is the site funnel. This is the progress from the standpoint of the organization. Number two is the user journey. This is progress from the standpoint of the user. Deliverable three, we're going to bring those together. Because both things have to happen in the same step. So now we're going to translate everything that we figured out so far into a site diagram, into some sort of thing that says, here's how my website's going to work. And by the way, I want to mention that I'm using a website as an example, but if you guys want to work on a mobile app, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm happy to have you work on a mobile app, or if you really want to do something that is adaptable and you can show the mobile UI versus the big screen UI. Any of that is good. Okay, here's my site diagram. It shows the combination of what the notice down here is the goal, drive one, and that's the same whether I'm the organization or the user. User wants to drive a car too. The organization wants them to drive a car. This represents success when the user has gotten here, everything's cool by my system. And the more users I can get to here, the cooler my system is, the better my system is for both the user and the organization. Okay, they start at the world, and as I said before, I'm using Google Page, which means I better have good SEO on my site, because when you do a search for a car, it better show up my page, better show up there. I'm using partial view ads that I put on other people's sites, and I'm using Facebook posts that I allow my users to drive other people into my system. Okay, where do they land? On a landing page. And my landing page, as I've sort of implied already, is a car full view. You guys remember the concept of a full view? It's everything about a kind of car. Not a particular car, but a kind of car, a Mini Cooper. Not a particular one in a dealer, but the car in general. Because I know from the world doesn't really know what kind of car she wants. That's the whole point. That's how I'm driving. That's how I'm drawing. I think my competitive advantage is I know about how to show you different cars, about cars, because I'm going to match them to your personality. I'm going to match them to the uses you have in the car, and that's my in. That's what I drive. That's how I bring people in. Okay, so immediately upon coming to the site, terms I understand, what I see helps me, and that is to assure the user that they're going to make progress by using my site. Come to many other sites, all you're going to see is a bunch of like details about cars. Okay, so I'm on the car landing page. To get out of here, I'm going to say I found some good models of cars, Mini Cooper and I don't know, Austin Healey or whatever, or my car models that I want. But you stay inside this landing page, find your idea of what kind of car you want. These techniques, a faceted search, a result sequence, car attributes. That's what's going to help you feel like you're. So this one page, notice, well, my site will have certainly more than 3 pages. Notice at a wider angle, what I'm doing inside this page, then moving you to this page. This page is a little bit more committed on your part, and it's a little bit more specific. And then finally getting you, let's see, hold on a second. All right, I'm just going to have to wing it, because, am I recording still? I think I did. It should be an arrow from this page also to the drive button. So this page and this page both take you here. So you land here, and I'm going to take care of finding the right type of car. When you find the right type of car, I'm going to try to move you to here. You're finding specific cars, and you're talking now about the dealer. My type of car is for sale around here. I'm going to get into this page if I feel like that's the truth. I want the car, and I trust the dealer is what I do to get to the drive button. And inside here, I'm going to give you lots of tools for further refinement. Price sort, you can do a location sort, and you can also from one car to particular dealer to other cars of that dealer. Meanwhile, I'm also going to give you this My Cars page, and this is to take care of the idea of I'm building up a stock of cars. I'm building up a bunch of cars that I think are really good, and my desire in this My Cars page is to not only allow you to keep track of stuff, and that's sort of the, what you think you're doing, but really what you're doing is, wow, look at how many cars I've got. Look at how many cars I found. That's putting a little bit of pressure on the user to say, all right, I've got all these cars. What am I going to do about it? It's gently moving the user towards this drive button. Okay, so what you should take out of this diagram, more so than my particular explanation of how it's modified, what's your site going to look like, and how are you going to take the user key, take the site funnel, and turn them into one site that does both things. It's moving the user through stages towards success, but it's also taking into account the factors that will either make my user drop off or make my user continue. That's the green, or what I need in order for the user to continue. And the general flow is the funnel flow. Okay, so that's an art. It's a real art to try and say the user and the organization are meshing together, and at the end, boom, we're at the same place. And at this place, user is satisfied, organization is satisfied. That's the goal of your entire system. And the way to get there is think about the organization separately, think about the user separately, and then put them together. And I think you'll agree that we're moving towards solidity here, towards knowing exactly what's going to go where on each page, and that's going to be our next step. All right, so make sure you pay attention to this slide as you're doing your own site flow. Many pages. Make sure that each of those pages has some kind of name. We can carry it to the next stage. Organize them in the way that you want the user to pass through them. So have that idea of flow pages in your diagram. Make sure that you have the funnel and your user journey both represented in that diagram. And again, make up your own diagram. I much prefer you to take these ideas and come up with a creative way to represent them. But you can sort of just follow along with my diagram. Yeah. No drop off on the site. That the greens are what you're trying to accomplish. Okie dokie. All right, so now next stage is hopefully getting into familiar territory. It's wireframes. And now we're going to make this real. Now we're going to actually start to say, this is a site, it has these different areas, it has this kind of content. And I will have time maybe to go into a little bit of the wireframes. But what I did was I made a bunch of wireframes and I linked them to the site so you can download all my wireframes. And if I don't get to the end of this, which is likely I won't get to the end, I'll record a separate drill down like I did for the data model so that I can go through it at a relaxed pace, and you can see what all the design decisions I made so that you can follow along with that. So here's some constraints on the wireframe. How many people have done wireframe? One person. You're going to be the point man on wireframe. Well, you're going to have to figure it out, and you're all big kids. You can figure stuff out, and I take the attitude, by the way, in this class that I don't have to teach you how to like go find a wireframing tool and make a wireframe. You guys eat that stuff for breakfast. The tool that I use is called Balsamic. If you want to just follow along with that tool, you're more than welcome to use it. There's a bunch of other tools that are available, or you can use PowerPoint if you wanted to. PowerPoint is more than sufficient at making lots of boxes with lots of things in it. The advantage of a wireframing tool like a Balsamic is that it already has web controls. Box, you drag it onto the combo box, and it looks like a web page really quickly. So any format you want is fine. Go find your own tool and learn how to use that tool. None of them are very hard. They're pretty to use. Um, it has to save in a format that's readable by us. So maybe it saves things as HTML. More likely, it saves them as PDF. Um, or if it's PowerPoint, actually, if it's PowerPoint, that's fine too. We can just take a PowerPoint file. So make sure whatever you have can get it out, and that's not uncommon. There's no wireframing tool that can have a way for other people to see it, because that's the whole point. You make a set of wireframes and you show them to people. Okay, so low to medium fidelity, that's what that means. A prototype at low fidelity means that it doesn't really look much like the final product. A prototype at medium fidelity means it doesn't look like the final product, but it's not the final product. And a prototype prototype or wireframes at high fidelity means it actually really looks like it. We're going to go to high fidelity in the next step, and we turn our wireframe into templates. At the template stage, you're going to look a lot like the final page. You just won't have. Okay, at least 3-page wireframes. So we have wireframes at the level of an entire page, and wireframes at the level of an area inside of the page. You'll see when I walk through wireframes that that's how it's done. That's how I want you to do it. One high-level wireframe that says here's a page with all the areas in it. We did that before. Be in that area. So at least 3-page wireframes at high level, and then all the areas with. You probably want to do your before. You've been thinking about what are my two types, so those are the likely ones. But you'll see when it came down to it for me, I did dealer car. There was another thing that actually came up really strong as I worked through this that I didn't think about earlier. It became the thing that I wanted to wireframe and yeah, probably the most important. Okay, so the page wireframes show areas in the general layout, and I'll give you an example of that in a second. And then separate mockups, separate wireframes for each area of each page. If there are separate tabs on the page, a wireframe for each of the tabs, because I want to show every mode of every page that you're diagramming. And as much as possible, have different pages, page layouts, sharing the same area, sharing the same sub-template inside. So I'll show you how that works in a second. Okay, let's see. The mockup itself, the wireframe itself, use actual content, not to, just as you need it for clarity. You'll see when I demo mine that some of the content is like it would be on the site, and some of it is just kind of mock-up content. Sometimes you really need to put actual content in there, otherwise it doesn't make any sense at all what you're trying to communicate in that wireframe. So use actual content, stuff that would really appear on the website as you need it to make sure the wireframes scan correctly. You can use field names from your data structure for stuff like car.title to show that the car.title goes here, where that's useful. Pop-ups and reveals. Everybody builds fancy web pages these days. We have mouse over behavior with tooltips coming up, and you have expanding and contracting things. If you have that, I want to see that all represented as well. So if there's a little button, and when you click the button, it expands out, show the expanded out off to the side or something like that. Let's see, list and drop downs. So anything that's a control, use some kind of realistic in there so it's clear what's going on, or put in there what is going to be in. Okay, a little bit abstract. Let me pop over to my. Let me pop over and give you the high level of the of my mockups so that you see. Let's see. Do I have them here already? Oh, here we go. All right, so this is balsamic, and I'm just going to run this balsamic. I saved it for I saved it as a PDF for you guys to download, but now I'm just going to run it from the tool. So here's the tool itself, and here's my landing page, and you can see this is a page. And by the way, a really good idea is to each of your mockups say exactly what it is, so that it's clear to you and everybody else what we're looking at. This is the landing page, and it has a car in here. The car has a few tabs. There's a banner, a selector, an association, and this one we call a call to action. So notice already what I'm doing here. I do a layout on the car, but then there's a big thing here that says, ready to move on to the next stage. I'm prompting the user to move on to the next stage, and in this case, we go from selecting a type of car to finding particulars of that car at dealers that are nearby me. So big button at the bottom, taking up a huge amount of screen real estate because it's really important to me to allow the user to easily move onto the next stage. Which dealers have this kind of car? I'm on a kind of car page, and now I can go to the next stage really easily with this button. Okay, so this is the big idea that I have. I have the large scale. Notice there's very little detail on this page. It's just giving me a layout. But when I look at all of my different layouts, it gives me a chance. So here's layout number 1, here's layout number 2, and here's layout number 3. So notice what I'm working at this level, at my top level layouts, is that my layouts give a consistent look and feel. They give a consistent message to the user. And really what I'm doing is I'm changing this bottom. So keep your eyes on this bottom as I move through my 3 top level layouts. And you'll see that this stuff in here really is staying very consistent. There's selector over here, there's associations over here, there's full view over here, same banner. But what mostly changes is the suggested action. Right? The reason I came up with that methodology is to give the idea of a flow, to solidly position the user by this "I'm moving forward" kind of idea. This bottom area here is I'm moving forward. Notice this button here. Here I am on my car's page. Make an appointment to drive this car. That's the success button, right? That's the drive this car button, and it's big and fat, and it's at the bottom here, and it also is over here. Drive it. Okay, that's really all I want to say about the top levels. And now let me drill down into a lower level. So here's the car area, and the car area has these 4 tabs. I decided, since my cars are complex, they got lots of information that goes on and scrolls on and on, I'm going to break the full view into 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. Now, you'll remember from a discussion earlier in the class that this does not mean that I have 4 info types. I have an overview info type, a personality, a feature, and a story. I have one info type called car, or a cool car in my case, and it's too much information for me to want to put on one screen, so I'm going to take it and break it into tabs. So this whole thing here, including all 4 tabs, is the full view of one car. And I've broken it for the purposes of UI, I've broken it into these 4 tabs. Okay, so here's tab number 1. And some things to notice about here is down here, because I need to really tell you what's going on with this, I'm using real words. This car is creative, down to earth, and dynamic. Those are words that I'm actually wanting to put inside my system. The car is best for status and road trips. It has good media system, lots of room, good safety rating, and it was once owned by Justin Timberlake. Not this very car, but this kind of car. Let's imagine this is a Mini Cooper. Justin Timberlake once owned a Mini Cooper. I'm thinking that's an interesting thing for my users. I'm using a cover flow here with all of my media. The car has various kinds of media, and it's all going to come up in this cover flow. Car.name. Notice this is actual content, and this is the name of a database. So I can use either. This is the name of a database field, the short description of the car, and so I don't really need to. This is going to be the name. But if I just said personality 1, personality 2, personality 3, it would be very hard for you to get the feeling here. So what I'm giving you here is some idea about when do you use abstract terminology and when do you use concrete terminology. I'm going to come back to these terms in a minute because part of what you have to do, not for this week, but for next week, is come up with these controlled vocabulary. Each one of these is controlled vocabulary, and you're going to do some work to figure those out as well. Okay, notice that I also mock up a pop-up here. So as you mouse over one of these, you get this pop-up, and that's what's shown in here. A pop-up with a short description of it coming up in relation to the thing you moused over. Okay, let's see, I think that's really most of what I want to say. You can see that I have separate mock-ups for each of the tabs. There's the personality tab. Here's the features tab, and then there'll be a stories tab. And notice I've worked through this in a pretty good amount of detail. The idea here is that I can go from this to a template without a lot of effort. Well, I wouldn't say without a lot of effort, but it's clear how to go from this to a template. I have to come up with icons here. I have to put a little kind of grid thing here. I have to put this in one grid relative to this. I'm going to be able to make my web page pretty quickly from this. And by the way, that is what's coming up next week, is making web pages. And so you should start talking to your team now about who's got the skills to do the web pages, and maybe get them going more on that this week, and who's got the skills to start doing these mock-ups and get those. So basically look into the future and know that you're going to be making HTML code, and you guys have all done HTML in other places. So I'm going to assume that somebody, at least on your team, is going to be able to help you get to an actual page. And so that's what you're going to be working on next week. And as you do these, think to yourself, how the heck am I going to put that into HTML? Don't propose something here that is impossible and you have no idea how to actually make it happen, because you're going to need to make it happen. You're going to need to make a web page that sort of looks like this. I'll introduce you to some things. Actually, if you want to start looking into that, a really good starting place is have any of you guys use Twitter Bootstrap? Right, Twitter Bootstrap is a really nice way to get pages prototyped really quickly with very little code. So if you're a little bit, if you're a little hesitant about making something this complicated because you don't know how to implement it, start Googling Twitter Bootstrap and get somebody on your team to become. In fact, basically everybody on your team can become a Twitter Bootstrapper because it's a really great prototyping tool, or something that's like that. Maybe you're a jQuery person or something like that, and you can code your stuff in jQuery. That's cool too. Okay, I think that's what I want to say about the prototypes for now. Sorry about the wireframes for now. Except to say that here's my list of wireframes. So you can see there's a bunch of them because I have pages. Oh, here's one thing I wanted to say. The association area. Here we are on the landing page, and here's my association area. Just put the vision of that in your head. That's the association area on the landing page. It's also the association area on the My Cars page. So as much as is feasible, you want to share the sub areas across pages, right? That's a lot of leverage. And if you can make it so that a lot of them are shared across pages, that's more leverage for you. You'll see when we talk about this next week, this is a template. And if I can reuse this template in 3 different layouts, more power to me, that I don't have to create more and more and more templates. It's really nice for me to be able to create a template and reuse it. Okay, so I think we're done with that stuff. Let me go back over to the slides. And a couple more things that I want to talk to you about. Controlled vocabulary. Not due for this week, but this is a way to start thinking about it, start getting it together. What are the controlled vocabularies that I specified, and where am I going to get them from? So in order to do the wireframe, you don't really need to have your controlled vocabularies in place, but it's really good to at least get some feeling for them, because that will give you the words to put into your UI, the words to put into drop-down boxes, the words to put into indexes and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to be doing the next cycle. Start on them now if you're smart, because the work you do now with controlled vocabularies will help you with the wireframe, even if it's not you. You can include them in the content of the mockups, and they'll also help you to understand the scope. Based on how many terms I find in my controlled vocabulary. Okay, so I want you to, when time comes, and I'll talk a little bit more about this next week, and I'll give you an example of it next week. I want you to include the list, your code spec that we'll talk about next week, and I also want you to find at least 2 sources for them. So I don't want you to make up these control vocabularies. I want you to find them somewhere. I want you to go out and find somebody who's listed all of these terms so that you can take advantage of that and find at least a couple of sources that repeat these terms in this control vocabulary and list them. Okay, not a big task, but it is an important task, and it's something that if we had more time, I'd go much more deeply into, because it's a really important thing. These control vocabularies are the basis for most of the information organization that you're going to do. So it's worthwhile to put some attention and also to know what other people have done along these same lines. Okay, that's control vocabularies. One last thing I want you to include. So what is inevitable? And it's really, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and it's inevitable for me. As you go along, stuff changes. You come up with new things. You come up with ways of thinking about stuff that in the last stage. So what I want you to do is not go back right now and revise all that stuff, but keep track of what you do. So I don't need you every week to go all the way back to the beginning and make the beginning consistent. There's a couple of things, however, that I want you to do. I want you to keep track of what changed. So you know what, we thought that we were going to have that in a different, but I want you definitely, as you go, to modify your database. It's a place where you can get really screwed up. If you make a change in your wireframe and change in your database, but you forget to make that change, you're really screwed up later. So this is a good thing. all the time. Of all the different deliverables, keep the schema as up to date as possible, and that will be something that all the members of your team can always go back to and say, exactly where is this? That database schema is about what you have to work with. So that's going to go right into the wireframe and make it into the wireframe frames. It's going to go into the logic of the site. It's going to go into the templating of the site. So do keep that up to date. And you can change your other deliverables as much as you need to before the final submission. And this is another thing that I want to give you right now is that I'm moving you really quickly through these deliverables because I want to give you some time at the end to go back and look at the whole package and trim it up. Right? You have to get a certain amount done per week, otherwise you're not going to make it to the finish line. But we finish a good week earlier than we need to than you need to present and hand this stuff in. And I'd be willing to take more time if I felt like you guys were going to use it productively to come up with a better finished product. The evaluations is only half done by the time you hand in your last part. We go through the whole thing once again at the end and evaluate it for about as many points as you got over the course of the quarter. Thing to take the whole package and trim the whole package up, but I don't want you to waste time trimming up stuff now that is only going to change you more. So let me show you some of the things that I came up with this week. That some of them were really actually surprising. Happens as you get to the end about what you should have done differently. So one of the big things I found is that my central entity came out to be not a dealer, but a car dealer. Like this big, it says car dealer, right? The bridge table using attaching things to the car dealer page. Like, for example, the media. So I have media card that's added. I don't have media for my cars anymore. I have media for the car that's at this dealer. All those things together, that's the media of the car. That was big to me. I didn't see that coming. I originally attached my media to the car, but that turned out to be a big mistake. And so I had to go back there and I forgot that cars are so I had to take that. I forgot that dealers have images. A bunch of little bits and pieces that come in when you start doing templating and when you start doing wireframes that you just forget. The what types hierarchy, I out of scoped it because it really didn't fit in with all the rest of the stuff I did. However, I did find, on the other hand, that my features, the standard, the extra features actually fell into a hierarchy. When I did the research to find out what all the features are, like drivetrain, sign standard, et cetera, I found out that actually represent that not as a flat because it has lots of levels to it. So you don't have to pay much attention to it as changes, but what I want you to see is that changes do happen, and changes are exactly what you're hoping to have happen. You can't know when you start where you're going to end. And what's really important is that you keep track of them, that you don't blow them off and say, well, we can't do that, because you really can't, especially at this stage. Note them. And then definitely make sure that and any other deliverables, you can worry about getting them up to date all the way at the end when all the changes have come in. So you'll find that you are going to need to pass through these things. You don't have to do that soon. You have to do that when it's all done. Okay,